Hey everybody, Todd Starnes here at Fox News Base Camp at the Republican National Convention, Cleveland, Ohio. It's lunchtime, and it's also Casual Wednesday if you can't pick up the vibe here. We have a very special guest with us at this lunch hour, and so welcome to all of our Facebook friends as well. Governor Mike Huckabee is hanging out with us. Governor,
thank
welcome.
you. Why didn't you tell me it was Casual Wednesday? I would have worn shorts and sandals instead of dressed up like this. I feel like I got sucker punched here.
Well, we do have protocols for Facebook,
okay.
Governor. So look, it's been a pretty wild but fairly docile convention thus far. I think a lot of people are anxious to hear what Senator Ted Cruz is going to have to say later tonight. And I find that ironic, seeing that this is really supposed to be Governor Mike Pence's big moment.
Well, I do think it's going to be important for Ted Cruz to step up and fulfill his promise, his pledge, made a year ago in this city, on that very stage, in fact. And that was during the Republican debate when we were all asked, would we support the nominee, whoever it was. We all said yes, except Donald Trump, who 2 weeks later, he said yes too. Ted Cruz needs to make that endorsement tonight. And I think the big question is, will he do it? Because if he doesn't, then frankly it's going to be hard to believe that he was making this speech for the country. He was making it for himself.
That does seem to be the big issue here. Is he going to set the stage for 2020? Is he going to stage some sort of a last-second coup and try to throw his name into the hat again? Or is he going to endorse Trump, which the campaign says he is? But the question is whether or not it will be a full-throttled endorsement or he'll be hedging it in some way. That seems to be the big question.
Well, it is. Look, I don't expect him to get up there and say, I think Donald Trump will be the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln.
No hugs.
No, I don't think there's going to be hugs.
Embrace.
I don't think there's going to be, you know, an overabundance of affection. I understand that. Look, they had a bitter campaign.
Sure.
It was intense. There were some very harsh things said. But at this point, the most important thing is to do the statesmanlike thing and to say, look, I have had a lot of clashes with Donald Trump. He and I really butted heads. But as different as we are and as much as we clashed, it's nothing like the clash that we both have with Hillary Clinton. And for the sake of the country, I come here tonight to say that I'd like to be the guy on this stage accepting the nomination tomorrow night. But tonight I stand with Donald Trump to support him. That's what I hope he does. You
mentioned something about the oaths, and for me that's been a big issue. It's been a big issue for a lot of our folks on Facebook that have been weighing in. And they feel like all of those guys who signed their name to that pledge, they should be honoring that pledge. What kind of a person does it say they are that they're violating that pledge and not backing the nominee?
And I don't think there is a way to justify and say, well, I didn't know it was going to be Donald Trump, or well, he said some terrible things, or well, he had some positions I don't agree with. That wasn't the pledge. The pledge didn't have a qualifier. It was, if you are going to be part of the Republican primary, will you support the eventual nominee? Now, Todd, let me explain to a lot of the viewers why that's important, because some people think it's just a party loyalty deal. It's a little different than that. Here's why. If you run as a Republican, the Republican Party will spend millions of dollars to help provide you a platform. The debates, all the forums that you get to be a part of, the primary system itself that puts you on the ballot and gives you access to the voters, all of that is part of the party structure. So the party is making an extraordinary investment in a person who is a Republican candidate. If the party has built the track and you want to put your train on it, you got to pay the rent. And it's simple as that. So for me, it's a matter of integrity. If I'm going to receive from the party the benefits that they are willing to provide, and what they ask for me in return is that I support the nominee so that I don't do more to elect Hillary Clinton, I don't think that's unfair.
Look, I completely agree with you, Governor, and shame on those men. I think it really says a lot about their character that they're not honoring the pledge they signed. And folks, many of you know I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A, but it's like you're owning a Chick-fil-A restaurant, but you're selling KFC out the back door. No, you got to sell the product, and that's the issue for me. And what about John Kasich? Where is? We have been looking for him.
Well, I found him.
We can't find him.
He's on milk cartons all over Ohio because he's been missing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And I'll tell you who's embarrassed by it, the people of Ohio. I was in the hotel having breakfast yesterday morning, and one of the servers who didn't know who I was came up, and she was just talking, and she said, you know, I'm so embarrassed about our governor not coming to the convention and not showing up. Look, if the Democrats were meeting in Cleveland this week, I'll bet you John Kasich would go and give them a welcome. It would be the courteous thing to do. He wouldn't be going and affirming their platform or their candidates. He would be going as the host governor to recognize that his state was privileged enough to have one of 2 political conventions that only happen every 4 years. It's a pretty big deal. And instead of making himself at least present enough to say, we're so glad you're here, let me join with the people of Cleveland to offer you our hospitality, he's gone missing in action. And there's a search warrant out for him. And I think it's just disgraceful. I think it's disgraceful. And I say this, John is a friend. He and I went to Rwanda together on a 1 campaign trip, and I adore his wife, Karen. This is not personal. I'm a fan of John in many ways, but this, I think, is just not acceptable.
There's been some talk about Mr. Trump maybe announcing some cabinet positions, folks that he would like to put into his cabinet. I know that Governor Chris Christie got quite a big welcome. He did a great job.
He did a great job.
I mean, he brought down the House. I think they were ready to march out of there and like put her in jail.
Yeah. Well, maybe a good idea, by the way. We know one thing: the Justice Department that we have now isn't going to do it.
So what do you think? I mean, if you were advising him on cabinet level positions, who would you recommend? Who are some of the names you would recommend for Mr. Trump?
Well, legally he has to be very careful. He can't name a cabinet because there is a law that prohibits, in essence, promising somebody a federal job until you're in a position to offer it. So if he were to say, I'm going to appoint Chris Christie Attorney General, I'm going to appoint Newt Gingrich Secretary of State.
But is there a way to wink, wink, nod,
There
nod,
is,
though?
and here's how he could nuance that, and it would be perfectly okay. He could say, the kind of people I'd be looking for in my cabinet are people like Rick Perry to head Homeland Security, and Chris Christie to be Attorney General, and Ben Carson to be Surgeon General. I mean, there are ways that he could do that, and it would be perfectly okay.
Mike Pence, VP nominee. I really liked what he said. He was a Christian first, conservative second, Republican third. That sounds like something you might say.
Maybe something I have said. I don't know.
But he does have an issue with some of the evangelical base, especially the leadership. Do you think that's going to be a problem for him, this flip-flop he did on the religious liberty law, or do you think that's just a speed bump and he's going to be able to attract those evangelical voters?
Well, there's no doubt whatsoever that it was a real painful moment for evangelicals around the country. And people were very, very upset and unhappy because they felt like they had been abandoned and that he had sided with the corporate interest rather than what he had said was his conviction.
And not just that, but his decision was created a domino effect in other states. So.
Right. If it hadn't been for Pat McCrory in North Carolina and Phil Bryant in Mississippi, they kind of turned the tide back. They both stood up and said, no, we're not bowing to the corporate pressure. But that was the first in a series of states that began to kind of fold under the pressure of big business. But look, let's be very fair to Mike Pence. Mike Pence is an unapologetic pro-life, pro-family guy. He's had a strong record in that. He's been outspoken. He has, he's had a good record both in Congress and as a governor on issues that really do matter to evangelicals. Nobody's perfect, and I think one thing to remember, Donald Trump got the nomination by winning evangelical votes and pro-family, pro-life votes throughout the country, including the South. So in one way, you could say it wasn't necessary for Donald Trump to pick someone like Mike Pence in order to get those votes because he was already getting them. But it certainly sends the right kind of signal that the base of the party, the social conservatives, are not being written off and taken for granted. So I think it's a good choice. It's a safe choice. There's no scandals that I know of regarding Mike Pence. He's a delightful human being. His wife's wonderful. So I think it's more help than hurt.
Governor Huckabee, thanks for hanging out with us. It's about lunchtime, so we have to head over to the commissary here.
Let's do it.
In a few minutes. Hey, all of you folks watching on Facebook, thank you so much. Be sure to check out our columns and stories at foxnews.com. From the Republican National Convention, I'm Todd Starnes.